Sometimes retro games are better left untouched. Just because you can make a new version of some arcade classic doesn't mean you need to. And oftentimes you end up with a much worse product as a result of trying to create something at all. There are a few times in recent history when a reboot of a classic franchise has gone well, like Pac-Man Championship Edition, but those examples are few and far between. Most of the time, you get something like the game I'm looking at today, Frogger, for the original PlayStation. Now, the original Frogger for arcades is based on an extremely simple concept. You need to cross a highway, then a river, using logs, lily pads, and other assorted objects to make your way across said river. That's it. Do it enough times and you'll move on to a more difficult stage. And the PS1 version of Frogger starts out just like that, a very simple remake of the original concept. It still seems a bit unnecessary for it to be in 3D, but whatever, it's still a perfectly serviceable version of Frogger and pretty fun to boot. But the game gets very weird very quickly, tacking on wildly unnecessary gimmicks that often make the game impenetrable, making the levels both figurative and literal mazes, requiring the player to not only dodge a whole bunch of new obstacles, but to simultaneously try and discern the path to the frogs that need to be rescued. And somehow they've managed to even screw up how the game controls. There's a certain lag to Frogger's jump that can be really hard to judge and make the really precise jump timings that this game unreasonably demands of you. In addition to introducing a slew of new mechanics, the game also attempts to introduce a lot of visual variety, a thematic variety. It's split into a collection of worlds and they all have some new theme. One might be set in the clouds, another in a series of dark caves, and they all introduce new mechanics that add even more unnecessary complexity to the base formula of Frogger. Frogger for the PS1 falls into an all too common trap. Too many of these franchise reboots assume that in order to make classic arcade games relevant, they need to be made more complex. The problem, of course, being that what made the games fun in the first place was the simplicity, the endless iteration on a basic concept that added difficulty to each subsequent level, without also creating the sort of confusion that this game's endless mechanics do. Games like the original Frogger were simply not made to be complex on the level of a 3D platformer. And trying to force it into that mold comes across as a terrible attempt to modernize a game that really didn't need modernization in the first place. If you want to make a Frogger game, make a Frogger game. But if you want to make a top-down 3D platformer, you should probably start with an entirely new set of characters, an entirely new setting. There's no need to rely on existing franchises to prop up your concept. Every Monday, I look at a game that's at least 10 years old, and I see if it's held up today, if it's still worth playing now. If you like that idea, be sure to subscribe so you can see the latest videos. If you like this video in particular, be sure to hit that like button, and thanks for watching.